While a good portion of America can't get enough of a star quarterback who allegedly knew something, maybe, possibly, we can't really tell, but it sure looks like it because we have some text messages from ball boys to go on about using deflated footballs. Hey, the world continues to spin, and so will Las Vegas money wheels come the first game of the NFL season. Call that nothing more than a flea on the back of the 70,000-pound NFL elephant because we have other issues to discuss, to discourse, another way around. From Syria to Baltimore and revealing what the cowards in our midst are currently performing. I'm Ed Berliner. This is the fastest 60 minutes of news for Friday, May 8th, 2015.
It's only been 30 hours, so I haven't had much time to digest it fully, but when I do, I'll be sure to let you know how I feel about it.
How is it that nobody knew about these abuses between December and May? And I can tell you from my own experience in investigating this issue 10 years ago, where many countries were alleged to have been involved in these cases, it is seldom, hardly ever, just a case of one soldier, 2 soldiers, 12 soldiers, 15 soldiers.
I want to thank all of you who've gathered today to honor Brian, to support his family, all in this church, and the many, many thousand members of the law enforcement community who have gathered outside, all of us today in solidarity with the Moore family.
Under Section 215, the NSA cannot listen to the phone calls of Americans at all. Despite the value of the Section 215 program and the rigorous safeguards that govern it, critics of the program either want to do away with it or make it much more difficult to use.
The Patriot Act was designed to keep Americans safe, and now it would appear the National Security Agency took their task past a line. Congress has to make a call on the Patriot Act renewal next month, but the United States Court of Appeal wasn't willing to give them that first shot. Some security gurus complain that the NSA has now been crippled. America's more wide open to attack, while those on the other side snap back for them to stop crying wolf and scurry away. Hey, someone has to be wrong here. That might cost American lives. Our guest is former Congressman, former Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra, joined by the Senior Staff Attorney and Civil Liberties Director for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, David Greene. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us.
Great to be with you, Ed.
Pete, I'm going to get to you first because the big headline coming out of this is Edward Snowden calls the ruling extraordinarily encouraging, and people say that this now vindicates Edward Snowden. That has got to chafe at people in the intelligence community.
Well, absolutely. Edward Snowden distributed and made public millions of documents. This is one program that he exposed. And, the premise is Congress never knew about this program, and he exposed something that was top secret that the executive branch was not telling and sharing with Congress or the legal process. Totally wrong. Congress knew all about this program. We were well aware of what the executive branch was doing. We were involved in oversight, and Congress authorized this program and authorized it repeatedly. Edward Snowden is still a traitor to the United States. He was on day one when he released this information. He still is today.
All right, let's go to the other side of this now, and this certainly will bring up some conversation from David, I believe. I'll throw this at you right now, David. Edward Snowden, is he a traitor?
Well, I think the answer is no, but I don't think the important thing is to talk about Edward Snowden today. The important thing is to talk about a court the court saying that the NSA acted beyond the authority that Congress gave it. And this is not the first time we heard this. We've had members of Congress, Representative Sensenbrenner, who wrote parts of the Section 215 of the Patriot Act, said the same thing, that when Congress passed the Patriot Act, it did not intend to give the NSA the ability to do this type of mass, bulk, surveillance of people who were not suspected of doing anything wrong. If you want to get mad at Snowden because now we all know about that, then go ahead. But the important thing is now that we all know about it, now it's been subject to judicial review by an adversary court. and it's been declared to be unlawful and unauthorized.
Pete, I think that that's an argument that we hear from a lot of people, and it actually does seem to stick if you look at it on its surface, because let's take Snowden out of this and say the NSA went too far, did they not?
I don't think so. I mean, this program has consistently been under congressional review. It's very interesting that a court comes in and says, Congress, didn't authorize this. Congress authorized these programs under the Patriot Act. Congress reviewed these programs and did oversight. The people who were reviewing this program all along knew the breadth and the scope of this program, and they approved it. And the other thing that people forget is throughout the process of using and going into this database, you had to get a court order to actually be able to go in and access the data.
I think that's part of it, though, Pete. I do think that's part of it, though. You're right. But with regard to the oversight in Congress knowing what's happening here is this appeals court is saying it was still wrong. It's illegal.
Well, this is going to go up to other courts and go to a higher court. And, from my perspective, Congress has set up the process in terms of how this law would be implemented and how it would be reviewed. All of those steps were in place, and it's interesting that a court's now coming in and saying Congress didn't do the oversight properly and didn't authorize it, whereas the people in Congress who were doing the work, we thought it was very, very appropriate, and we were following the letter of the law. And I think as it goes up, you're going to find there will be review, it will be challenged, and I think there's a very good possibility, as in the past, when lower courts have ruled, their problems or their findings have been thrown out by higher courts.
All right, David, let me get to you then from the legal side of things. Is it possible, again, that this appeals court may have overstepped itself, and then as Pete says, and others say as well, that this was within the law, this was proper, and this is necessary for national defense?
I think what's important to know is that this issue of congressional ratification was before the court. There was evidence of this in the record, and the court rejected it. It's not something the court ignored. What it showed now, Representative Hoekstra was on the Intelligence Committee, but the most of the members of Congress found out about this program when they were sent a letter from the House Intelligence Committee, a letter from the Senate Intelligence Committee, inviting them to a secret briefing where information would be made available for them before they voted on ratification. Many, many, many members of Congress have said that that was not enough. That letter was not enough to put them on notice of the gravity and the breadth of the program. So this is not an issue that the court ignored. This is an issue that was in evidence. It's an issue that was argued. There were amicus briefs submitted by members of Congress who said that if I had realized that the full breadth of this program, that's not what I thought by ratification. So it's an issue that's out there. It's an issue this court considered. It's an issue that this court resolved.
I got a little more than a minute to go here. Pete, let me ask you this, because I think that this is the most important issue here. The fact that this court has ruled, depending on what Congress does then in the Patriot Act renewal, is this what we have seen now going to severely injure the NSA's ability and the American government's ability, the intelligence community's ability to be able to find the people out there, the terrorists, and keep America safe?
Well, I think the one thing that the court did do right, it's allowing the NSA to continue this program pending further judicial action. Congress needs to act by the end of the month. This program expires on June 1. I think that the House and Senate are in very different places, but this information is vital. These tools are vital. Congress is going to have to come up with a way to resolve the difference between the civil libertarians and the people who are focused on national security and come up with an effective compromise.
David, isn't that the big thing here? We need to come up with something, because if someone happens to die, if something happens to happen, if you will, because of a lack of intelligence, this is going to weigh pretty heavily on some people's souls.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think that the people who believe in civil liberties and the people who are concerned about national security are separate groups of people. What this court said and what many of us believe is that you can do both. You can protect civil liberties and protect national security at the same time. And there's been very little indication that this particular program the court ruled on has been efficacious, has really been helpful in protecting civil liberties.
We can only hope that
national security.
We can only hope that we don't get to that point. Pete Hoekstra, David Greene, thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. This is a conversation that's going to go on for some time. I'm sure we'll speak again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. When we come back, it is a blame game being played in the city of Baltimore. But really, there's much more to it than that. This is the fastest 60 minutes in news. The Hard Line continues.